All right, King Charles has delivered the government's throne speech, kicking off a new session of Parliament. The speech has laid out the Liberal government's upcoming agenda. Joining us with his reaction is Andrew Hensick, Director and Senior Economist with TD. Andrew, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. It's good to see you.
All right, well, the speech touched on a number of familiar themes. One that stood out is as moving quickly on removing interprovincial trade barriers. What did you make of that?
Well, this is something the government has telegraphed. The Liberal Party spoke about it extensively in the election campaign and was featured prominently in the platform. They set that July 1st deadline to try and remove any federal barriers that exist to interprovincial trade. But, going forward, they're going to have to get the provinces on board. And so we're going to be looking forward to see what comes out of meetings with the premiers and to see more progress on that file.
All right. Now, the speech also touched on the issue of housing and Prime Minister Carney's ambitious building plans. How difficult is it going to be for him to achieve that scale of a transitional change?
Well, it's not going to be easy. We're talking about increasing, housing construction, to potentially 500,000 units a year, something that we haven't done. There are several factors that he's going to be bumping up against. First of all, you have a workforce that's aging, with a lot of retirements coming up soon in that sector. You have a construction sector where productivity growth hasn't been particularly good. So raising productivity in the sector is another challenge that they're going to have to face. And I guess part of it is what their initiative to lean on prefabricated homes and hope to increase uptake there in order to deliver homes faster and at a lower cost. This is an ambitious initiative and will likely take some time, but the target is there. We're just going to have to wait and see how they can go about delivering.
All right, well, one of the reasons King Charles is here symbolically is because of the political and economic challenges we here in Canada have been having with the U.S. administration. That was also addressed. How do you see that playing out, and what are the implications for the Canadian economy?
Well, the implications are pretty big. So in terms of how we see it playing out, there's been a lot of movement on the trade file, and the direction kind of comes from our neighbors to the south, from the United States, and what they choose to do on trade policy. From our lens, we've operated under the assumption that things will eventually be resolved, maybe not fully or to bring them back to the way they were before, but we anticipate a gradual easing of tensions and a reduction in uncertainty, starting about in the second half of this year and then moving into next. What that would mean is the economy itself would begin to gradually recover as the uncertainty that hangs over businesses and consumers gradually fades. So from our lens, this is just another step in the process. Some difficult conversations and negotiations are likely going to take place with our partners south of the border. But we maintain the view that, there is going to be a gradual reduction in some of these trade barriers and an easing to these tensions and the uncertainty that have kind of hung over the economy, certainly to start 2025.
Okay. Now, a lot of these uncertainties are raising concerns about inflation. And of course, we've got Bank of Canada meeting coming up next week. What are you expecting to see, and where do you see rates going from here?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, for the Bank of Canada, the last inflation report was likely not what they wanted to see in terms of cooling inflation pressures. Yeah, the top line came down, but core inflation pressures picked up, which was quite unexpected. Look, ultimately, through the back half of the year, we think the Bank of Canada has space to deliver 2 more cuts to support the economy. The rate reductions that we saw last year, the tailwind from those is starting to peter out, and we're seeing it in the labor market that is clearly cooled here in the early part of this year. So through the rest of 2025, we're of the view that you can expect probably 2 more cuts from the bank. to bring that policy rate down by another 50 basis points.